point in time, I know we're still waiting for a couple of people on the public hearing. The engineer, I believe, Mr. Close isn't here yet, and I've been informed by Mr. Attorney Hall that he'll be here shortly. Therefore, I request that we take the order of agenda out of order, and if we could pick up some of the other old business matters, if there's no objection from the board members? No objection. Having none, okay. I'd like to take on the old business, if we could take 1519-1527 Middlesex Street. The board will review the application for the project located at the above address. Actions were taken by the planning board concerning with respect to the site development that deviated from the previous approved site plan. This was a matter that came before us, and then we went out, we did a site visit, and we spoke with the neighbors on the matter, and it was back before the planning board at our August meeting, and it was continued to tonight for the applicant to follow up on some of the requests on behalf of the board that made. And if we can hear from the applicant, if we could, please.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, George Fiolides Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell, and I'm here this evening on behalf of Naaman, the owner of the premises. And I have the general contractor here with me as well. I guess, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I have some pictures. I'm sure you've all had a chance to look at it.
We did receive a letter from Aaron. He also gave us some pictures for the packet, I believe. Okay, yes, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Councilor. Is this the same Joe? Yeah, okay.
I'm sure you all recall that there were some serious landscape issues that needed to be addressed, and if you've had an opportunity to go up there, I think it's fair to say we finally found a big enough fence and a big enough set of trees that we finally got rid of those gas meters, which were pretty ugly, no question. I think we all agree to that. And then a lot of other landscaping was done along the way, and then we had to deal with the area in the back to fix up those berms and the tree area and whatever. Mr. Clausen was very nice to work with the contractor and the owner and made a couple of trips up there, and I think, as you see from his report, it's a vast difference now than what it was before in terms of complying with the board's wishes. So we're certainly glad to answer any questions you have, and hopefully you'll find everything satisfactory.
Okay. Aaron, we did receive a copy of a letter from yourself to myself and the planning board members, and basically it points out at the bottom you indicated that you thought all the actions that were addressed for the additional center islands for the shaded trees, the gas meter's been covered, the dumpster's been moved, and in your opinion you thought it met the adequate address the concerns that the board had at the previous meetings. Do you have any comments on that, or you think the letter just speaks for itself? Or anything further you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, that basically covers it. I was just trying to show there's 3 or 4 outstanding elements from the last time I did a site visit. I wanted to provide an image of those, and from walking around the site and going through all the comments and the conditions of approval, it looks to me that the project now stands as it was approved on plan. So,
okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from any of the board members? Hearing none, what's the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I just make a motion to approve the plan as completed by the applicant and is fulfilling the conditions of the planning board in its original approval.
Second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's seconded. Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Therefore, the matter is approved with the alterations as corrected. Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much. Appreciate Mr. Clausen's assistance in this matter, too.
You're welcome, Councilor. Moving along under old business, we have another matter, which is 1095 Westford Street. The owner of the nearly completed commercial building located at the above address requests the board grant an extension of the site plan approval lapse period for an additional 2-year period required by section 11.4.12 of the zoning ordinance. This project has been ongoing and is nearly completed, and I think it stalled for a period of time, and the applicant is requesting an extension. Any of the board members have any comments on that?
Apparently, there's been a change of ownership here, and that caused a bit of a lapse in the building, but it does look like it's substantially complete with some finishing work left to be done, so I'd have no objection to granting the extension.
Okay. Any of the board members have any further comments?
I agree with Ms. Claremont's comments. I mean,
Okay.
clearly, the building has been substantially completed.
You want to make that a way of a motion?
Yep, I'll
Okay.
make the motion to extend the
2-year period?
2-year period.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's made in the second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes, that matter is approved for an extension of a 2-year period of time. Moving back on the agenda, we'll go back to our public hearing. This matter is a continuation of a public hearing on 1782 Middlesex Street, -1610 Wood Street, and 1719 Columbia Street. The Lowell Planning Board will hold a public hearing to hear all interested persons relative to the application by Basil and Joanne Carantris for a site plan review for the project located at the above address. The project proposed to raise 3 existing buildings, 2 of which are single-family residents, one located at 6 Wood Street, the other at 1719 Columbia Street. The other building to be raised is the Beauty Salon, located at 1782 Middlesex Street. Redevelopment of the site includes 7,500 square feet commercial building, providing 5 storefronts, each approximately 1,200 square feet in size. The project spreads 26 parking spaces over 2 lots, one with access from Wood and Middlesex Street, providing 18 spaces, and the other access from Columbia Street with 8 spaces. The project is located in the Regional Retail Zoning District and requires site plan review under Section 11.4 of the Lowell zoning ordinance. May we hear the case of the applicant, please?
Excuse me, Chairman, can I just point one thing out on the notice here? It actually states that there's access from Columbia Street. That's a typo. There no longer is access in the plan from Columbia
So in the
Street.
typo, there's no access from Columbia Street.
Yeah,
Sorry about
correct. I
that.
just want to
Thank you.
confirm that.
May we have the
Mr.
applicant?
Chairman, Attorney James Hall, 25 Fletcher Street, Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and I represent the petitioners. This evening, we have Paul Gaudette, the project manager, and Mr. Close, I understand, will be here shortly, hopefully in the next couple of minutes, because he has all the answers to the engineering questions I think that you'll have. I'd like to address 2 points. One that Aaron has already addressed. It's very clear from the very beginning there'll be no access onto Columbia Street. That was a promise that we've made to the city council way back when, to this board for over a year now. So however that ended up, that is not our consideration. There's actually in the plan, there's a fence, and we also intend to put a deed restriction or some sort of document at the registry of deeds that's acceptable to the city solicitor. So that, please, I thought we'd get some hue and cries from the neighbors, but I think they understand that that was a typo, I hope, and we apologize for that. There clearly will be no access onto Columbia Street. The second point I want to be very clear about, because this has come up over several years now, that we have every intention to make sure that Tom Fuse has exactly what he wants. He's a direct abutter to the property. Tom is able to speak for himself, I'm sure, but there's fencing and walls and protection that he wants for his property. I think somewhat akin to what's over at the dental building directly behind his property. So my client knows, and Paul Gaudette knows what he wants, Tom knows what he wants. So I'm here to repeat again that we are absolutely going to comply with what Tom wants over there, as long as the board is in agreement. We don't want to upset Tom. I know the last time I meant to say that, I forgot to say it, and Tom was out of his seat, and I apologize for that too. But other than that, I think we've talked about this matter for well over 2 years. We started out, as we all know, it was a 1-building project. We were tearing down 3 buildings on the corner of Wood and Middlesex Street. We were proposing to have 1 building there. Over the course of the first year of this endeavor, there was a view by some of the members that it should be 2 buildings, or maybe it would be a better project if it were 2 buildings. We talked with the neighbors. I think the neighbors had somewhat of the same feeling, and also they wanted to see us acquire, or would like to see us acquire property that was directly adjacent to this on Columbia Street, so we could add more parking. So we spent the last 9 or 10 months doing that. We now have additional parking on the Columbia Street lot that will have no access onto Columbia Street. We've split the project into 2 buildings, which I think makes for a superior project now. And I hope that the board members will agree. But I'm here to answer any questions, or if Ronnie has come in, or Paul Gaudette would be happy to help out.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Do you want to start with Mr. Gaudette? or-
Yes, you could
Okay,
step in.
thank you.
Paul, would you like to step up? Oh, Ronnie's here. All right, Ronnie, we're just getting to the point. I don't know if you're ready to go.
Yes. For the record, I'm Ron Close. I'm the engineer on the job. We did meet with Mr. Clausen, and he had a list of recommendations. We believe we addressed, say, 99% of them. There was one issue with the horizontal parking, where you needed 20 feet in front of it for a safe zone. I left that in. I understand that he would like us to just revise that section, which we can accommodate easily. I tried to meet the letter of the law, which are zoning ordinance, and that was the problem. I couldn't fit the island area in, which he considers a safer way to do it. So we're going to accommodate that, but we would request that if you are going to vote on, and that's the only issue, that we make it a contingent upon the approval would pass the plan in. I'll address any other questions.
So basically, the letter that was from Aaron, that was addressed to myself as well, that you received a copy of, that was from some of the comments that he gave to you. Let's see. Aaron, is this the letter that we have received a copy of this letter as well?
Yes.
When it's dated September 9th?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
Mr. Close is referring to that memo,
Okay.
yeah.
Right, what I'm saying is the,
So, if we go, so the ones we got September 9th, so Aaron basically had 8 comments. So basically, you're in agreement with all of them, all number 8, or you have one that you said you have, we could do contingently? Which one would that number be?
I'm saying there were 17 comments on the last letter.
Previously,
We
okay.
addressed that. I just
Okay.
received this letter today.
Okay,
And the only issue that I can see that would be an engineering issue would be the redesign of the horizontal parking area, as opposed to what we had, which meets the letter of your law, your zoning law, that the first space have a 20-foot free area. And I could not get that island in and still keep that 20 feet and provide for the adequate ingress, egress at that point, where the parking area exits into Wood Street. But we're willing to redesign. I understand Aaron's recommendation is that we meet the island recommendation rather than the zoning requirement. He'd be more of apt to approve it that way. I recommend approval. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I mean, in effect, that's what I had indicated. The 20-foot clear zone that Mr. Close is referring to is an area that is supposed to be provided adjacent to parallel parking spaces, so that there's enough space as a car pulls out of that parallel parking space. They're not pulling directly into a drive lane, which would create a fairly significant crash potential. It's not a safe situation. So what the ordinance requires in the parking standards, dimensional standards, is that there's a 20-foot clear zone for parallel parking spaces next to drive lanes. That can be in the form of an island or a bulb out, as long as you have 20 feet between the end of the parallel parking space and the edge of what would be the drive lane. So you're still providing the 20-foot clear zone. It's just not it's just not striped as a clear zone.
Yes, sir.
It's actually a bulb. So you're still providing the clear zone and actually further delineating the drive lane and the parking lot and providing additional protection for the cars parked in the parallel spaces. So you're achieving all those things in one shot.
I have no problem with the redesign. Most of the other questions, I believe, should be addressed to Mr. Gaudette as to what would, construction-wise, what they would accept. For instance, granite curving, concrete curbing, etc. I can put them in as a design on the plans, but it would be their choice on whether or not they were going to address that issue tonight.
Anything else further, Mr. Close? If not, let's see if Mr. Gaudette wants to address any of the comments that were CC'd to him. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Just one more comment on the calcs have been provided to the engineering department. The only thing to date, the feedback that I've heard from them is originally I had an overflow. Whenever you do a subsurface type of system, we usually overflow into the city system. We try to keep it on site, but we do provide for an overflow in case of that one unusual storm. And originally I had it, the overflow exiting from what we call the said basin, water quality structure. It was thought that it would be better to let it overflow right out of the subsurface Caltech system. So that's the only change. It doesn't really change the plan, in only that we still maintain an overflow system. We have just moved it over on about 15 feet onto the Caltech system. That would be the sum of my presentation, unless there's questions.
Okay.
On a
Thank you,
technical
Mr.
matter.
Close. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Gaudette?
Forgive me, I'm quite hard of hearing, so
Okay.
but when you talk to me, just yell at me, okay?
Okay. Basically, you have a copy of the letter that Mr. Clausen CC'd to you that was addressed to me on September 9th?
I'm sorry.
Do you have the September 9th letter from Mr. Clausen?
Yes, on number 4, item 4?
Actually, on September 9th, Mr. Clausen sent a letter to the planning board, and he gave you a copy.
I don't think I have the same thing you do.
You have those?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I'm Paul Goddard.
All right. Could you just address those for us, number 1 through 8? Could you address each one of these on the letter for me?
I have not addressed these because I just received them. I did speak with Aaron about them yesterday. And the one in particular that is item number 4, which would not be an engineering item.
Well, that basically that is to indicate that you would provide the vertical granite curbing.
The vertical granite curbing would be replaced anything that's in the public way, because that is what is there at the present time. On the interior, what we are looking at is using a pervious concrete surface as opposed to regular asphalt. If we use the pervious concrete system, it would preclude us from using an asphalt berm. We'd use either a slope granite curbing or a cast-in-place concrete curbing, one of the two. At the very least, I believe, even if we go hot top, it would be a slope granite curbing in the parking area.
Address the fence. The slats on the fence.
So you have no problem working with the planning and development in regards to the landscaping?
Landscaping will be to the Lowell zoning code,
Okay.
as well as with input from the planning department.
Okay.
We will, at some point, sit down with the planning department, and they will indicate exactly what kind of trees are going in what location.
And your utility meters, you'll have those screened as requested?
I'm sorry?
The utility meters on site, you'll screen those?
The trees that are on site are probably not going to be salvaged,
Okay.
mainly because there's going to be drainage lines that are going to go very close to two of the big trees. And we'll probably, if we did that, we'll probably kill them anyway.
Okay.
One of the other trees, again, is in the construction area. It would have to be removed. Those would be replaced with some type of tree. And we would sit down with the planning department and say, okay, this is the type of tree we'll plant here.
Okay. Your utility meters,
Utilities,
the
we
meters
as-
themselves, you have no problem screening those? The utility meters that you have on the property, we requested those be screened?
the utility meters, everything will be underground. All the utilities into the building will be underground. There'll be
But the
no
meters themselves,
The
the meters
meters
above
themselves-
ground so they can be read,
We will
be screened?
be
They
at
would-
the mercy somewhat of the utility company as to where we put them.
Right, but I
But
mean-
we will endeavor to put them out of sight.
Right. But we request that they be screened either by trees or type of screening so they're not seen by the public. They screen them.
Well, there's,
If you could read number 6 on the letter.
number 6?
Yeah,
All right,
okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah,
Okay?
that's fine. There's no, more than likely, all of the meters are going to be out of sight,
Okay.
not visible from the street.
Yeah. Because we request they be screened somehow, so even if they're turned away from the street, they still should be screened, okay?
That's, no.
Okay.
Usually, the one that is the most problematic is the gas.
Right.
The gas meters, they want to have them as close to the street as possible.
Right.
In the normal course of construction, you put shrubberies around them to make
Okay.
them disappear.
Okay. Do you have any problem with number 7 on that page? Number 7?
Number 7,
Right. The soil test, I think, Mr. Closter, they wouldn't have any problem on those to be sent to the city engineer,
those have already been done.
That's correct.
okay?
They're complete and have been submitted.
Okay,
We can get the copy over to
Okay.
DPD.
sure. And number 8 for the city engineer for the sidewalks and curbs on site to be rebuilt.
We're gonna do
Yes, whatever sidewalks that we disturb will be rebuilt. There are some sidewalks that are not even there that we are going to end up having to build.
Okay,
And that's, we've already sat down with Aaron as to relocating them to get the sidewalks back from the street. So there is some buffer between the sidewalk and the street.
just going back, if you could look at number 1 on that letter, about the layout for
Yep.
the, I think was that what you talked about, Mr. Close, for the zoning requirements for the parallel parking? Aaron, was that what? Okay, that's what you agreed to? Okay.
I'm gonna redesign that.
Okay. There was a no parking area up the top on the plan, sheet number 2 of 4, right? Yeah, okay. All right. Just on number 2, if either Mr. Close or Mr. Gaudet could comment on that, talk about the chain link fence, and Aaron made a comment on that. Sure, Mr. Hall, absolutely.
Since this began, we kind of had a gentleman's agreement with the neighbors and their attorney that whatever fence or screening that they wanted there would be acceptable to the petitioner. We've always told them, though, that it's subject to the board approving it, so I don't know if Mr. Curtis could come up and indicate his wishes, and maybe the board can consider that, include that on the plan.
What I'll do is I'll keep this open for the people in favor, and then I'll take up any comments from Mr. Close. What it has is we just have a comment here from Aaron, which was a letter addressed to the board, so I figured I'd cover them all at the same time. And it basically just says, the applicant has proposed a chain link fence with privacy slats to match the existing fence along the western border of Columbia Street. The proposed fence will provide a solid and appropriate screen for residential property on 23 Columbia, but may not provide enough transparency along Columbia Street, the boundary to ensure a parking lot is being used appropriately. The board may wish to explore the applicant removing the privacy slats along Columbia Street. Do you just want to comment on that, Aaron? And then we'll see what the applicant's response may be, if they have any questions or concerns. Thank you.
Sure. Basically, what this comment is getting at is that if you're putting a opaque screen completely around the parking lot on Columbia Street, particularly in Columbia Street, there's little chance or little opportunity for people to see into the parking lot and kind of provide some level of surveillance. It's not that you're watching over the parking lot, but as you're going about your day-to-day activities, you're going to have an eye on this parking lot. So if it's opaque, it's harder to see what's going on in the parking lot after hours, and maybe a less safe environment than if you take away the privacy slats on Columbia Street that would provide some transparency into the parking lot. It's a suggestion. If the neighbors feel it's very important to have the opaque screen into Columbia Street, I'm not here to say that that's absolutely not something that we would agree with at DPD, but just in thinking about design of spaces, particularly in the public realm, and in the transition between public and semi-public spaces, it's sometimes better to have better views from the street than less. So that's what that recommendation is getting about, is basically public safety. I'm not talking about the fence that would be abutting the Fuses property. That would be screened with an opaque screen. I'm just talking about the fence that's along the Columbia Street frontage, so that you could see into the parking lot. But honestly, it's kind of up to the neighbors from my perspective, but it's just a suggestion about safety.
I'm sorry. Yes, I think the Fuses would be happy with what's there in the back, matching that up as you've indicated. So that would be acceptable.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman?
Sure.
Just on that point.
Mr. Genman? Sure.
Thank you. In my feeling is that people on Columbia Street probably aren't seeking transparency into that parking lot. If I were living on Columbia Street, I would want to avoid transparency. Taking down that house is going to allow you to see right out to Wood Street and I think it would take away some of the neighborhood feel in the neighborhood. Obviously, whatever the neighbors want in that space is what should go there. But in my personal opinion, I think you'd want to block view there rather than make it transparent. And, you know, as far as illegal activity or something going on after hours, I think, you know, hopefully the owners of the property will police that and make sure that it isn't being used in that way. I don't think they'd want it used in that way either, but that would be my opinion on it anyways, but I defer to whatever the neighborhood wants to see there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, anything further, Mr. Hall? If not, I'll...
No, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
unless you have some
Right.
questions.
Okay, at this point in time then, since the applicant has finished speaking, I'll request anybody on the public hearing would like to speak in favor of this project. In favor with comments, whichever, Mr. Curtis.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name's Gregory Curtis with the firm of Goldman & Curtis, 144 Merrimack Street. I've been involved with this project with several of the neighbors from the start, and I think we've come full circle here to a plan that is very acceptable to the neighborhood, and hopefully it's going to be a big improvement for that location. As Mr. Hall indicated earlier, I think one of the major issues they see with the plan is the fact that if the fencing situation, a chain link fence that faces Columbia Street, that 2 or 3 of the neighbors are directly across on Columbia Street will be looking into a open parking lot or a parking lot filled with cars during the day. I understand the safety aspect of it, but we would ask that the board would recommend a solid fence, either a 6-foot plastic style fence that would look good and allow some sense of privacy from looking straight across into a parking lot or out onto Wood Street. That is still a nice neighborhood in that vicinity, and would like to keep it that way. So weighing those 2 items, a safety issue as opposed to the privacy issue, I think most of the neighbors that would be directly affected by that would want to have a solid fence, at least on the Columbia Street area. Other than that, we did talk, Mr. Hall talked a little while ago about a slight deed restriction to be worked out that we can look into about protecting that area so that we don't have future changes or future development after we've had this project develop. Other than that, we support it fully. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Curtis. Would anybody else like to speak in favor of the project? In favor? Yes. Come on up, please, sir. Just come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record, if you would, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tom Fuse, and I live at 23 Columbia Street. I'm a direct abutter to this project. And the question I had is, it's safe to say that the slats that are in that fence in back of me are opaque?
They are?
They are? Are they? Okay. No, I don't know if they are. That's what I'm asking.
I thought they were solid that you could not see through them.
Because being that, you know, my driveway is maybe 18 feet wide, my kitchen is right there, and I'll be looking over 18 feet, and if the slats are opaque and I can see through, that means that somebody can see through to us. So I don't know, I don't want anybody to be able to see, like you had said, sir. If you lived there, you wouldn't want that either. So I would suggest if that's the case, then we have some kind of slats that you cannot see through. And also, the last time I had an opportunity to speak, I had mentioned a wall up along my driveway. At this time, Dental Dreams has a wall that goes in back of their business, and it stops right behind my garage. What I had suggested is they continue that wall over to Basil's property line and my property line, and just run the wall up towards Columbia Street. And put the 8-foot chain link fence on top of that, like they did in the back, and then some privacy slats. And that's, you know, that's basically all I'm looking for.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak in favor of the project? In favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. At this point in time, any of the board members have any questions or concerns? Mr. Gentleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sure the Mr. Hall and the developers are happy to see nobody speaking in opposition. This has been a long road, but it's nice to see it come together like this, because I think what we have here is a really much better project than what we started with. I think it's going to make this corner look really nice, and I think the neighbors are going to be satisfied, just the way things are supposed to work out here at the Lowell Planning Board. I wish they always did. I did have a question, though, about the fence. Mr. Curtis, do you know, is the preference for the neighbors chain link fence with slats or the 6-foot vinyl fence?
No, they don't.
fence?
They'd rather have a solid fence, as you see now, maybe a 6-foot-high solid fence, white plastic, or something that aesthetically looks good along that Columbia Street location, so that the 2 or 3 neighbors that are directly across, and even neighbors to the side, are not going to be looking straight into the parking lot on an ongoing basis.
Right. I mean, I'm not surprised, because if I were living there, I would much prefer that to either open chain link fence or a chain link fence with slats, because I think the slats sometimes get broken over time.
After a while, they start to deteriorate, or they don't look as good, but just the fact that a nice, solid-looking white fence would probably be best suited, and I know Mr. Fuchs also is looking for, privacy on that area, whether it's slats on that side, but I think the direct line, I think it's about 75 feet on Columbia Street, that they would ask that would be solid.
Mr. Hall, is that something that the developers would agree to?
If you just identify yourself, please, for the record, ma'am?
I'm sorry?
If you could just identify yourself for the record?
Catherine Garris.
And your address?
33 Sedalia Drive.
Thank you.
My husband is George Garris. No, we were just talking about regarding the fence, exactly what you said. We don't really want to see what's going on across, and hopefully that the owners there with this project will have some kind of surveillance. There is a fence on that other property at the corner of Middlesex and Columbia, which is the white plastic, or is it vinyl, and just continue right on. It will look quite lovely, I think.
Yes.
So we'll continue right on, if that's acceptable with you.
You're the boss.
I'm the boss? I don't know about that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So I would, suggest that we add that condition, that the fence be a vinyl fence at the request of the neighbors, to match the one that's existing.
Any further comments, Mr. Gentleman? No? Okay. Mr. Fischett, any questions, concerns?
Just a few comments, Mr. Chairman, and again, I echo Mr. Genron's comments as to how this has been developed and based on the original plan, and I commend Mr. Genron, because I think he identified some concerns that the neighbors would have, and the petitioner went back to the drawing board. I do want to state for the record that I had concern from day one extending the retail zone, but that certainly is what the neighbors wanted, and it seemed to work for what the finished product, and be able to put the parking in the rear of the property. The concern is obviously to provide the deed restriction to prevent access, because although intentions are good, if something happens and the site doesn't get developed as proposed, or if there are some changes down the road and you end up with something much more invasive, that there will be some protections in place, because once the zoning is changed, then you have other challenges. So I think that's a concern that still remains out there, and I think needs to be addressed. Clearly with the fencing, I think if everyone is pleased with that, I guess I have to ask the question to Mr. Fuchs, because I know Attorney Hall mentioned whatever Mr. Fuchs wants is what he would get. And I'm curious as to this, the wall and the fence on top of the wall. If you could address that, Mr. Hall, I would appreciate that.
I might need a 1 or 2 minute recess to talk to the project manager, Mr. Close, but My understanding, it was going to be a wall just like the one that was there. It was about 2 or 3 feet off the ground, and then on top of that, there would be a fence. But I really think it would be in all of our best interest if I could have just 1 minute to recess to talk to my client, just so he would confirm that for me, and I won't be misrepresenting. So if I could just have 1 minute, please.
And if I could interject, what may be helpful, we've got a few property lines that we're dealing with here and different fences that we're talking about. Maybe if we took a copy of the plan and after you consult with the neighbors and your client, maybe just mark on this plan, you know, what type of fence we're getting along each property line. This way we're all sort of clear of what we're looking at.
Yep. Oh, could I just talk to you for 1 minute?
Sure. We'll take a brief recess while Attorney Hall consults with his client.
We've conferred with the project manager,
Okay,
Mr.
excuse me,
Gaudet.
the recess is over. We're back on. Attorney Hall, back to you. Thank you.
And Tom Fuse, and there's a consensus that what's in the back by the dental building, the 3-foot concrete barrier with the fence on top, it'll look exactly the same so that Mr. Fuse's fencing will be consistent. And I believe, and I won't speak for him, I've known him too long, I wouldn't presume I could speak for Tom, but I think he's happy with that. So I think it'll be easy to visualize. We haven't had a chance to mock up the plan. We probably could do that after we go back out in the hallway, but it'll be just like it is today. There'll be the continuity around the Fuse property. We'll have that white fence in the front. So I think we have pretty good understanding what we can do.
Thank you. Mr. Claremont, any questions, concerns?
Sorry. No, I think, just to confirm, I mean, we spent a little time jumping around a little bit on the letter of September 9th, but the other issues that were listed in that letter, there were no concerns with any of those. If there were conditions of approval, no concerns, the September 9th letter?
In that letter, I think there was a concern relative to the slope granite curbing or vertical curbing. We don't think it's necessary to have vertical curbing inside the property itself. We could do probably slope granite or the concrete curbing that Mr. Gaudet was referring to, but I think to require that vertical curbing at the cost that it is today, I think would be excessive, and hopefully the board would not require that.
But if it were granite curbing or concrete curbing,
That would be
either one.
slope granite, right. And I think Mr. Clausen did not really require vertical granite
No, it's not
curbing in
looking
it.
for vertical curbing,
No, he
just,
didn't,
just
yeah.
granite curbing or
Yes.
concrete curbing.
That would be fine.
That's fine. I have no other questions.
So, just back it up, Mr. Hall, while I have you up there. So basically, from the letter that was addressed to the board on September 9th, when we have all 8 of the matters, I think the only thing, you've been in agreement with everything, and I think the only condition was on number 2 that Mr. Gemlin addressed, and I think you addressed it, is that you do the white vinyl with the fence that makes the neighbor happy. So basically, if we wanted to accept this letter as a part of our conditional approval with the understanding of the change making on number 2, that'd be satisfactory to the applicant?
I think so, yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
All right. Okay. And because basically that was just talking about the fence that Aaron mentioned, and I know Mr. Jevon indicated that He thought the neighbors wanted it one way, they concurred with that, and then you said you'd do the white vinyl, and then you'd take care of Mr. Fuse's wall, so if we had all of those matters, along with, I think, the other condition was, the deed restriction, right?
That's correct?
Okay.
Yep.
So if we did that letter with these conditions in the deed restriction, you'd be comfortable with that? Mr. Curtis, you'd be comfortable with that as well, or you want to comment on that, or do you feel that covers your concern and everybody else's? I know we've had a lot of concerns in the past that we've
Right, but
come a
I
long
think
way till tonight's meeting.
those address the concerns,
Okay.
and we've gone through the plan. The plan looks fine with regards to what the neighbors have with the fence issue, and with that deed restriction, I think we have a project that is beneficial to that whole area.
I thank you, Mr. Curtis, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do want to indicate that I know this project did come a long way since it's been here. I think we've been here almost 2 years on the matter, and I also give the applicant credit for going before the council for a zoning change, and I know that's time-consuming, and I know that was of no fault to the applicant that it delayed the process a little bit, but I think in the end result, as Mr. Gemmin said earlier, it was a project that made the neighborhood and the applicant happy, so I'm happy with the conditions as requested. And I'd be in favor of the project with the conditions as requested, as mentioned by the other board members. So, anybody want to make a motion to that effect, or?
Just a point to clarify as well on the letter, number 3 speaks of flat black factory finish. I think we've agreed that is going to be the white vinyl fence. Am I correct there? Okay.
That's correct. Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in just one more time, just from my limited experience.
No problem.
On the other side of the fence is town council. If in this vote that you make, that you somehow address directly to the city solicitor that we're going to be there looking for this type of help, I find out if you go to the city solicitor, say tomorrow, if you voted for this, and I say we have to do this, they have no direction, or they just don't respond to a citizen off the street. So I don't know if there's something you could put in your vote that it'll be sent to the city solicitor, and the city solicitor, along with the petitioner, would develop the restriction, so that at least I can enter the room and I have authority. Because sometimes they'll send you right back in a month. And
So basically, what you're looking for would be that we cover that in our approval, so you could go there with a copy of the minutes and say, this is what the planning board told me to do, and that's why I'm here.
yes, that's right.
And so therefore, you have a reference to address the city solicitor, say, I'm here as request of approval that the planning board
That's
put
right.
on the project.
As long as you're requesting that I go there. Yes, thank
Do you have
you.
any comment on that, Joe?
No, I think
On the
that's
deed
fine.
restriction?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can just request that the city solicitor develop a deed restriction along with the applicant.
Any further comment from the board? At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Excuse me, Chairman, could I just make a couple clarifying
Sure.
comments or questions on the letter itself? I understand, I think, how the fencing is going to work out, so no problem with that. I'll just put that as a condition that we work and kind of everybody gets a sign off on that. I just wanted to bring to attention on point 8. I wasn't sure if, I was trying to get this out quickly so people had time to at least respond to it. But point 8, which deals with sidewalk and curbing along the public way. The first half talks about the city engineer's comment requiring reconstructed sidewalks and curbing the entire frontage. The second part I was referring to was the sidewalk as it exists now on Middlesex Street approaching the intersection is along the curb line, and that the site plan has on the Wood Street frontage, the sidewalk is brought back with a landscape buffer with street trees. My recommendation was to just get rid of the sidewalk that's along the curb line and just bring the sidewalk and hug it around the parcel boundary with a buffer as long as you can. I can sit down with the design team to figure out exactly how that works. But it just basically removes excess sidewalk and it provides a better.
All right, it seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't think it was. I just want to make sure that was clear.
I think we addressed that in the past, but I'm glad you brought up some clarification when it comes to time to make the motion. Okay.
Let's see. The only other thing was in the letter from Paul Goddard, the American General Contractors response. There was a couple, I think the last two comments, or three, that they would work with the water department. I just wanted to point this out to the planning board, because these are in response to comments from different city departments other than DPD, that the water service would be sized as directed by the water department. And that we've already talked about the soil testing. I haven't seen the calculations, but I understand the city engineer is working on them with you guys to figure out what the correct sizing is and how it should be designed. And then the other one goes back to a comment from a while back about the building construction, more about the actual kind of materials on the exterior of the building. Comment, I think it's 17 from Paul, says that they're going to use a similar kind of construction practice on Chelmsford Street in Chelmsford, which has a cement block base with a brick veneer. Basically, trying to make sure that the building materials, the construction materials, are done in a manner that they're sort of aesthetically pleasing, rather than just concrete blocks. So I just wanted to point out that these were elements that Paul and the applicant were saying okay to.
The only thing I could say to that, I hesitate to jump in with the aesthetics and how the building is going to look, but Paul has said the photos were provided for review of photos of a building located on Chelmsford Street in Chelmsford, Mass. There's a one-store cement block and brick veneer with a flat roof with a sloped front overhanging on the sidewalks. I think that's probably what Paul was intending to build. And I think maybe Aaron wanted to build something else or have some different view of it. Or are you in agreement with what Paul said?
I'm fine with this.
Oh, all right.
The earlier comment was asking what the building materials would be. It wasn't really a direction or a comment.
I think we're all
This or
set.
that.
I think there was a
But it's good.
misunderstanding.
I just wanted to comment and point out that this is the building material that will be used, and I think it's worth kind of codifying that in some sort of approval, so that you can put it on the line and see it, the building material that is all this.
So Aaron, you're in agreement with number 17, his answer to your question.
Anything further, Aaron, or you think that covers it all?
That's it.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions from the board members as a result of what Mr. Clausen said from the Division of Planning and Development? Okay. Hearing none, what's the wish of the body?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve with conditions, and the conditions I'd suggest are referred to in the letter that we've been discussing this evening, addressed to yourself from Aaron, dated September 9th, 2009. The conditions that I believe we've agreed upon are numbers 1 in its entirety, number 4 with the condition that the interior curbing be either granite curbing or concrete curbing, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8 on that letter be conditions. In addition, the planning board will request that the solicitor that work with the applicant to develop the deed restriction that we've spoken of tonight, that the fences be installed as we've spoken of tonight, and you've got that information. And then finally, that the construction materials for the exterior of the building be cement block and brick veneer as indicated, and that water service will be as directed by the water department.
Is the motion on the floor?
I'll second that
Motion
motion,
made and
Mr.
seconded. Any
Chairman.
further discussion or comment?
Yeah, I'd just like to suggest that we add to the line item about the fencing, that specify that the fencing along Columbia Street should be a 6-foot white vinyl fence, as agreed to this evening.
That agreeable to all parties? Okay. Motion made, and that second by you, Mr. Jen, with that comment?
Yes.
Which is acceptable to Mr. Claremont as a condition? Okay, motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Chair votes yes, so the project has been approved with the conditions as listed, as outlined by the board members. And I want to wish everyone good luck on the project and thank the neighbors for their input. Appreciate your time and effort. Thank you. Yep. Good night. Okay.
Thank you,
Good
gentlemen.
luck. The next matter we have on the agenda, we'll go back to old business, and this matter is the project of 133 Clark Road. The board will review the proponent of the project located at 133 Clark Road, a list of site development elements that do not conform to the plan and conditions approved by the planning board when granting special permits. Items include driveway, curb cut width, not meeting zoning standards, landscaping along the abutting property, and decorative lampposts that were not previously approved. The board will decide what corrective actions must be taken. Is Attorney Flood with us? I know a letter was sent to Attorney Flood, and he was here earlier during one of our previous meetings. This evening, during the public hearing, he was present. Is anybody here in the, is Mr. Flood in the hall? I can have Mark take him. Sure. Maybe he's down there, if you would. We're going to double check to see if Mr. Flood is outside the council chambers at this time. Is he out there? Okay. Sure, I think he sent a letter to Flood. I don't know what else he sent it to. I mean, Ms. Nichols is here. Yeah. So that's everybody. I'm gonna have her read a letter to us. While I'm waiting for Attorney Flood to enter the room, this was a letter that was sent from Aaron Clausen, our associate planner, to Attorney James Flood on August 6th of 2009. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read this letter into the record. And this states, James Flood Jr., Flood Law Offices, 549 Rogers Street, V133 Clark Road, deviation of building construction from the approved plan. Dear Attorney Flood, per our telephone conversation, I'm writing in reference to the project currently under construction at 133 Clark Road. That includes a proposed driveway and associated landscaping. During a recent inspection, it was determined that there are deviations from driveway design and landscaping from what was approved in the planning board decision letter dated March 13, 2008. The planning board granted a special permit for driveway length under section 6.7.2 of the Lowell zoning ordinance, and reduced frontage in the suburban single-family district under section 5.2.9 with 6 conditions. The following deviations have been noted and documented. Condition 1, placed on each special permit approval, indicates that the applicant must reduce the curb cut to conform to dimensional requirements enumerated in the zoning ordinance. The ordinance requires the curb cut to be 15 feet or less in width, measured from the curb line in the suburban single-family district. On the site inspection shows that the driveway curb cut are closer to 25 feet in width. Number 2, condition 2 of the approval requires that the applicant to complete the landscaping plan as described in a letter from the applicant dated February 27, 2008. It appears from the inspection on the site that some of the landscape elements proposed in the letter will not be feasible, the limited space provided between the driveway and the parcel boundary. In some places, it appears as though part of the driveway, one or more of the decorative light posts, and a telephone pole have been placed on the abutter's property. Furthermore, the lighting elements were not mentioned in the agreement or shown on the plan approved by the Lowell Planning Board. It should be noted that the plan submitted to the Planning Board and approved with conditions illustrates a distance of approximately 9 feet from the driveway edge to the parcel boundary line. The attached photo clearly shows the driveway have been constructed directly adjacent to the parcel boundary and appears to cross into the abutter's property line in some locations. Number 3, with respect to the decorative lighting installed on property, Section 6.4 of the zoning ordinance states that decorative lighting must be installed in such a manner to prevent direct light from shining onto any street or adjacent property. Considering the lighting has been installed directly adjacent to the property line, and in some cases the lights may be installed on the abutter's property, it is unclear how the lighting meets this standard. Number 4, the applicant has installed a telephone pole near the driveway entrance, which appears to be on the abutter's property. The location of the telephone pole was provided in the plan submission approved by the Planning Board. Excuse me, the location of this telephone pole was not approved by the Planning Board where it is currently located. In light of the deviations of the approved plan as identified, the Lowell Planning Board will be reviewing this matter during the Planning Board meeting scheduled for September 10th, 2009 to determine corrective actions that may be taken. We strongly recommended that you attend this meeting, as it will be your opportunity to summarize corrective action that you intend to take. If you have any questions or need assistance, please feel free to contact the Division of Planning and Development at 978-446-7248. And this was signed sincerely, Aaron Clausen, which is the Associate Planner and our Planning Board Administrator. That was the letter sent, and it was copied to the Planning Board. It was also given to George Parekas, who is the Director of Planning and Development, and the Building Inspector, Mr. Camacho. As a result of that, we also received a letter that was addressed to me from Patricia Nichols. We all have a copy of that, and I can either read that or wait until we see if Mr. Flood's going to join us. I don't know, not much longer. I mean, he was here.
I think, Mr. Chairman, perhaps the letter from Patricia Nichols we can accept into the record because it's fairly lengthy.
Okay.
This is Ms. Nichols?
Are you Ms. Nichols? Sure.
Maybe we can hear from her.
Do you want to come forward, Ms. Nichols? And would you like to do you want to read your letter into the record so we have it, or if you just come to the microphone for a second, please, if you would? Thank you. I know I had the opportunity to meet Ms. Nichols yesterday. I called her at a residence, and I went out, and I did speak with her last night for a good half hour on site, and she did discuss to me in detail the letter. I don't know if you have any comments about that. You heard what we wrote from Mr. Clausen to
Yes.
the applicant.
Yes. I just wanted to say, I've lived at 143 Clark Road almost 26 years. And when I came before this board 2 years ago, it was because the driveway that was on the plan originally was almost 60 feet away from my property. And when they asked to have it changed, I had reservations because I thought it was too close to to my driveway. We met with the board, and because I was trying to be a good neighbor, I met with the McSorleys. We made all those agreements for the landscaping, and none of that has happened. Over the past 2 summers, there were a lot of things I could have complained about. Again, because I get along with all my neighbors, I didn't. Until the morning of June 27th, I looked out my kitchen window, and there was a bobcat digging my side lawn, and he was within 2 feet of my driveway. And that's when I said, I've had enough. And I went out with the plan that was approved by the planning board and spoke to the site person. And I said, you have to stop. You're not following the plan. He took the plan and looked at it, and he said, because they were building a stone wall, they were tearing my lawn up to build a stone wall along my driveway. And he looked at the plan, he said, you're right, this is way off. So he contacted Mr. McSorley. He came to he came home, and he said he would get back to me. And that was June 27th. I've heard nothing, and they have just continued to disregard the approval, what was approved by the planning board. And I'd like to thank Aaron, especially, because when I first called him in June, early July, he was very helpful. I guess my worst fear was that everyone was just going to ignore me, and he's listened to my complaints, and he's been very helpful. And I just wanted to end with, if everybody that came before the board and got approval then walked away and did whatever they wanted, I can only imagine what the city of Lowell would look like. So I just thank the board and hope this can be resolved. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. As a result of receiving the letter from Aaron, we did go back, and I had a chance to look over some of the minutes that we did approve on this site. As indicated, when we approved the matter last, which I looked closely to, was on the March 3rd, 2008 meeting. There was some discussion of the matter, and when discussion came up, Mr. Lockhart questioned whether the driveway width could be narrowed to accommodate a driveway curb cut to conform to the city's zoning, as well as the material in the sidewalk. Mr. Luigi indicated that they could narrow the driveway and reduce the curb cut to 15 feet in order to conform to the code, and they would match the new sidewalk material to the existing sidewalk adjacent to the project. Mr. Claremont asked whether the applicant would be amenable to making the landscape improvements outlined in the letter from Mr. McSorley to Ms. Nichols a conditional approval, which the applicant did confirm. Those I do not believe have been complied to. General discussion from the board showed support of the current project over the original subdivision and exhibited appreciation for the applicant from contacting Ms. Nichols to ensure the project would be acceptable to all neighbors. The conditions that we opposed was the driveway curve cut to be no more than 15 feet, subject to landscaping plan to be approved that was dated in the letter from Mr. McSorley on 2/27/08 to be incorporated in the project. The applicant provide the sidewalks and curbing material that match the existing sidewalk. The city solicitor will review approval of the driveway easement. And then it noted that the applicant would place a deed restriction on lot 17 and 18 as shown on plan, stating that the property can no longer be subdivided beyond the plan's approval as part of the above referenced plan. The city assistant solicitor must review the approval of the wording of this deed. The applicant must preserve the 12-foot tree on the southern side of the section. At that point in time, a motion was made by Mr. Claremont, seconded by Mr. Fischett, and was granted for the special permit for the driveway length. The motion passed with all the members voting in favor. The motion was approved. So those are the conditions that we approved. Obviously, we have some concerns now whether those conditions have been addressed. At this point in time, we did call the matter open. We paid Attorney Flood. He's been here. He's not in the hall. Questions is, what are our remedies at this point in time? I think basically we could ask, one, if we want to refer the matter to the city solicitor's office to see what they would recommend for some of the remedies that we do have. I think also under the Chapter 40A, Section 7 of the Mass General Laws, it indicates about the enforcement of the zoning regulations, and basically we can request the inspector, in this case the building commissioner, to enforce the zoning as requested, as we approved. So basically, since we don't have Attorney Flood here to address any of our concerns at this point in time, to address not just neighbors' concerns, but conditions that we have put on the project, which they indicated that they would accept. And to this point in time, by looking at the project from the Vision Plan and Development, looking at the project myself, and I know other board members are up there as well, it appears that these conditions have not been approved, or not been met, and Mr. Flood, who was here, is not speaking on behalf of the applicant at this point in time. So I think we could either make a recommendation to the law department to see what our remedies are, and we could also request maybe that we ask the building inspector to request that our special permit be enforced. And I'll turn over for any discussion at this point in time any of the board members may have in regards to what they feel is appropriate, which way we proceed.
Well, a couple of thoughts on that, Mr. Chairman. I think absolutely, number one, this is a situation that needs to be resolved. I think we do need to have a discussion with the law department to know exactly what our remedies are. It's never come up before, since I've been on the board, that we've had to take some sort of action, whether it is to rescind a special permit or take some other enforcement action. So I think we need to hear from the law department as to what our options are, and perhaps get to the building department as well. If this activity is still going on at the property, he may need to issue a cease and desist order until such time as this can be addressed and remedied. I do think that rather than just refer to the law department, we should refer to the law department, have the building department look at it as well, and keep the matter on for hearing before this board, and making sure that we have the proper notifications out to the proper parties. In addition to Attorney Flood, I'd recommend that we notify the applicant or the contractor directly, so that he'll have notification.
Okay, thank you. Any of the board members have any further discussion or comments?
I would agree with Attorney Claremont, Mr. Chairman, that not only referring it to the law department, but we want to have the applicant notified and brought before the board as well. Certainly looking at that site and looking at the conditions that of approval. And I just have a question for Aaron. Aaron, when we approve a project, does the petitioner get a direct copy of the conditions that?
Yeah, typically I would send a copy of the approval to whoever was bringing it through the process. So in this case, Attorney Flood would have received that condition of the actual decision letter with the conditions.
Okay, all right. Because I mean, there was some.
I don't think Mr. McSorley received a copy of the approval in this case. No, just Mr. Flood.
Okay, all right. Because I mean, there were some very clear conditions here that are not gray areas. I mean, it spells it out very clearly what the condition was and what the expectation was. It's nothing left open for interpretation. So certainly that's of concern as a member of the board. If we, given specific conditions in any kind of an approval that we make, that it be adhered to. So I would concur with Mr. Claremont on his recommendation.
Mr. Gentleman, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with the suggestion of Mr. Claremont. However, it's nice to notify the client and tell him we wanted to come before the board, but I think we've already done that. We asked him to be here tonight, and, I know Mr. Flood was here earlier, but he's not here now when the matter's coming before us. So, and meanwhile, work continues on this site. I think this represents a blatant disregard of our recommendations, not our recommendations, our conditions and our authority in the city. We can't have that. If you look at that, we put 6 conditions on the project, and the applicant was here. So whether he was notified or not, we can't say that the applicant didn't know about the conditions. Condition number 1, the driveway width was blatantly disregarded. Number 2, the landscape plan, as far as I can tell, that was disregarded. Sidewalks that matched the existing sidewalks, that was disregarded. I don't believe the city solicitor reviewed and approved the driveway easement. I'm not sure about that one, but clearly there are some conditions that we put on there, at least half of them, that were blatantly disregarded. Furthermore, normally if there's going to be lighting elements involved, we review them in site plan review. was never any discussion of lighting elements, and there's some significant lights on the property that clearly shine into the abutter's property. It's supposed to be 9 foot, driveway's 9 foot from the property line on the plan, and now it's this question of whether it's actually on the abutter's property. Location of the telephone pole, not part of the site plan, and it's just thrown up there, and question about whether it's not even on the property. I mean, this is amazing to me. And meanwhile, the work that's there looks nice. It's obviously high-quality work, but the work continues, and my concern is that the further down the line the work goes, the more there's going to be a temptation to say, oh, well, it's just going to be so expensive for us to change this now. I think it's the beg forgiveness rather than ask permission approach. I'm wondering, is there some way we can stop the work from continuing until we get some response and some approval or some agreement here?
I asked the same question, and I spoke with Alan about this today, and after that, I did, as indicated, which I made a copy of, which I'll give, is under Chapter 48, Section 7, we can ask the building commissioner to enforce the special permit. So if they go up there, and that special permit is to be enforced, and they don't have the criteria that for the special permit to be enforced, they have the authority to stop development on the project. So I mean, that's why I think, like, trying to be careful with the letter of the law how to do it. So if we can ask the building inspector to, and it says right here, the inspector of buildings, comma, building commissioner, or local inspector, or if there are none in the town, the board selectmen, boom, 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 shall be charged with the enforcement of the zoning ordinance or bylaws and shall withhold a permit, construction, go on and move on from that area. Then it goes on and tells what the board can do and if it's brought to our attention. And it also goes on and states, if they're brought on notice and they don't correct it, the law shall provide a penalty of more than $300 per violation, provided, however, that nothing herein shall be construed to prohibit such laws from providing that each day shall constitute a violation. So if we request to refer the matter to the building commissioner to enforce the special permit, I think the building inspector would have the authority to maybe stop the project.
So it would be my feeling.
So I don't know if we can tell him to just stop it, but we can refer it to him to enforce the special permit.
I think what we can do is we can move to request that the building inspector take a look at the project and issue a cease and desist order if he's find it's not being done in compliance with the special permit, number one. Number two, I think in addition to that, we should follow up with the law department for any additional remedies that are available to this board and keep it on for a hearing at our next meeting with notice to everybody. So I think that would cover all the bases.
Yeah.
It gives an immediate stop order to the work if it's not being done in compliance with the special permit.
And I think also, if we get back to what Mr. Gemman touched on, if we refer it back to the law department, we can ask the law department to give us an opinion on whether that condition of the city solicitor about the easement and whether the city solicitors must review the approved wording of the deed restriction to see if that has been complied with. So we can ask them twofold, what our remedy is and whether they did follow through with conditions number 4 and 5 as indicated by our approval. And then the city solicitor can say if they either did or did not, and this is what your remedy is. And just to back up a little bit, when we asked about notice, a ways back a little bit, when Aaron one time notified an applicant on a project, it was brought to my attention and Aaron's attention that Attorney Flood represented the applicant and he wanted the notice to go to him. So I said to Aaron, fine. If that's the case, instead of giving it to the applicant, if he's represented by counsel, send the notice to counsel. Aaron did speak with Attorney Flood about this issue, as per phone conversation, did send him a letter, and Attorney Flood was present here this evening. So I feel that the notice requirement was covered, and I think Joe's saying about, do we give another notice out? Under the law, they always question us, do we give due notice? So by giving further notice, sometimes we can cure any defect, whether they're saying, we're gonna ship it back to you because the notice wasn't perfected. So if you take the extra step to give notice one more time, the question is, are you overburden the notice, or you're just trying to satisfy, so it's one step that we've completed. And that way, I think the notice, if it goes to both, it's online. I don't think it's overkill, I think it's overprotecting the board's assets.
And notice requirements aside, if the applicant, if the contractor were to come in here and say, I didn't know about it, I didn't know about the hearing, even if that were the case, if he's not complying with the terms of the special permit, the building inspector has the right to go in and stop the project right then and there, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that's step one. Step two, I don't think it hurts to renotice for a second hearing, both to the contractor and to Attorney Flood, because this matter is obviously going to be something we're going to deal with in the future and look at our remedies with the law department.
And just another option is, and I know we've done this before, is when we do give notice to the applicant, and most of the times they show, and most of the times they stay for the part of it, we've gone out and done a site visit. We've worked it out on 2 projects. One was back in front of us this evening. And as a result of that, we hear their side, and we hear the other people's side. And a lot of times, we can try to meet a happy medium. But I don't think the board's adverse to doing that. I think if that was proposed to us, I think we'd all be in favor because we've done it in the past. And as a result, I think both of the projects come out much better. So I think, but obviously, you kind of have a meeting in the mind if the applicant doesn't appear. So I think, like I say, I've been up there, I know Jerry was up there tonight, I know a lot of us take time to go look at these sites, but if they were willing to say, well, we think the property line might be here, might be there, well, we'll go out and listen to both. And like we did last time, we get the city engineer. We've had the city engineer, or somebody from their office represent and come up with us. We had Mr. Camacho on the one on Middlesex Street. And he came up and he added some nice valid points to the project, which we considered and gave him time to cure. Instead of stopping that project, because we thought it wasn't enough to stop, it was enough that we could fix. So I think sometimes we'd be amend to that, but if they're not here tonight, after being put on notice, then I think, we could, as indicated, we make the 2 referrals to the building inspector, law department, and continue this to another night, and we'll send the notice out that we're gonna put this back on our agenda for our further review. And so I think that way we get more clarification from, and then hopefully, we can also get a report back from the building commissioner or someone from his office on what they feel the special permit is being addressed and what their concerns are after going up and surveying the site. So I think if we did that, as indicated, notify both, put off another night, and give notice to all parties, and hopefully bring it back, and hopefully the other parties show up. If not, then at least we know legally what our ramifications are under the law, and at least what my interpretations of the law are here as a lawyer, and Joe as a lawyer is one thing, but we have to fall by what the city solicitor goes by, and because they're the ones who represent the city when it comes to legal matters. But as just upon looking at the matter, most of our stuff are covered in Chapter 48. That's why, after speaking with Aaron today, what are our options? And he explored it briefly, but basically, I think we're safe by referring to the law department and getting a written opinion, and then we can address that opinion. So those would be my concerns as well. So I don't know if we want to put that in the form of a motion, or...
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that, number one, we refer the matter to the building inspector and ask that he take a look at the project, and if it's not being built in compliance with the special permit, that he issue a cease and desist order. Secondly, that we refer the matter to the law department to determine what our other possible remedies may be under this situation.
And can I just add to see if they complied with the condition of the approval?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. And number 3, if we could ask that we continue this to a date certain at a meeting. I know at our next meeting, you indicated you could not be here, which is two weeks from tonight on a Thursday night. So maybe if we gave it the first Monday in October, I believe. Aaron's the meeting after that. Do you have it with you, Joe? I know you carry it sometimes too.
The next one is...
We're 2 weeks from tonight on a Thursday. I'd like to see if Joe indicated he might not be present that night. So I'd like to have, and I know Rich isn't with us tonight, so I'd like to see if we could possibly get it back before the full board.
Monday, October 5th.
Yeah, maybe beneficial to wait till the 5th and give the...
And that way it would give maybe the law department and the building commission more time to explore the matter. And that way hopefully we'd have all 5 board members present. So could we put that in that we continue to October 5th?
Yes, and that we send a notification of that both to the applicant and to Attorney Flood.
Okay. So that's a motion made by Attorney Claremont. Any board members want to second that or further discussion?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman. I'm wondering also if do we have any, time is of the essence, I think, with regard to the building inspection. Do we have any ability to ask the building inspector to make this a priority, maybe make that inspection within the next several days? Aaron, can we do that?
I can convey the urgency of the matter to him. I think Bob's pretty, much as pretty quick to respond to issues, so.
And if,
I'll draft a letter tomorrow to him on behalf of the board with the motion, and I'll just give him a call and just let him know that it's on its way, and that, I'm happy to go out there with him too,
Yeah.
to help.
We want to try and prevent any further harm from happening to the property.
Yeah,
and if he has any questions, he can, address us, or through you, you can send us notification through email, whichever, to make sure that whenever you draft to him, we have a copy of them, we'll keep it in our file.
yeah,
Okay.
certainly.
That'd be great, thank you, yes.
Okay. So that motion was made and seconded, and we'll continue till October 5th. We're back on the agenda under old business. All in favor of the motion with the conditions?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes yes. Okay. Moving along on the agenda. We just have, notices from a butt in town. Entertain a motion, we place those on file.
So moved?
Okay. And the same with the general correspondences. Okay, two other matters is, under old business. Usually in our September meeting, one of our September meetings, we do have our election of officers. If we could possibly put that on to October 5th too, so we'd have a full board, and we could do that on that night.
Certainly.
That way I know, Mr. Lockhart will be back from vacation, and if Mr. Claremont can't be here the next night, at least we'll have a full board to act on that. Any other board members have any further comments, or Aaron, any further comments from?
I just wanted October 5th for the appointments?
Sure.
Okay.
That way we'll have a full board, because Joe indicated he can't make the next meeting, and we usually like to have all board members present for that.
Mr. Chairman, are you planning to run for re-election?
Excuse me?
Are you planning to run for re-election?
I would like to. Thank you.
You got my vote.
Thank you very much, I appreciate that, so.
I'll put the sign on my lawn if you
Yeah. Hope that's not a conflict, so. Any further comments from board members? If not, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is made,
Second.
and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have adjourned, good night, and thank you very much for everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.